I think we have enough people to get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Rockwood. I work at the Newport Historical Society. I am the Development and Marketing Associate there. And this session is called Membership, What Have We Done for You Lately? It's going to be a discussion style session where I hope everybody will feel free to pop in at any time. Just unmute yourself. You don't have to wait for me to call on you, especially because there's so many people in the Zoom. I cannot see all of you. So just feel free to unmute and start talking whenever you'd like. But first, I'd like us to get started. I have some goals for this conversation. I'm going to read them out loud, although they are in the Whova app. We have a chat in the Whova app, and I've put the goals there so that you can see them. I'd like us to gain an understanding of the trends in the museum membership field during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, to learn how museums throughout New England have handled members, and to feel a sense of community with your colleagues during a tough year. So those are kind of the goals I want to happen with this session. So it's more of a sharing and learning session rather than a me talking at you the whole time session. I also have some questions to consider so that we can kind of, when I open up the floor, you can kind of answer one of these questions. And one of them, the first ones that I asked in the description for this was, what was the value to members while museums were closed? How did you keep members renewing and engaged? How did you communicate with members? Did you lose a large quantity of members? And I know that's a relative question depending on your institution. If your museum has reopened, did members and membership come back quickly? And are you still doing everything you did during the height of closures? Just to get the ball rolling, I'm going to start the conversation. One of the biggest changes that we made to our members is that we did not mail anything out. We are very letter-heavy membership where they expect to get their renewal member letter and then they renew online or however they would like. But because in March and April and May, we decided not to mail out members, we were doing it by email and by phone call. And I'd never done phone calls to members to ask them to renew. And people were very suspicious of me asking for their credit card numbers over the phone. So, you know, we did try to get them to renew online. But what happened is in June, when we felt it was safe to send letters again, we did a mass mailing for all of the members from March, April, and May and June. And our membership came back immediately after a downturn through those 3 months. So we definitely saw our members way that they really like being contacted, but also when we would thank them, not only would we send them a thank you email and a letter, we also did a phone call if they didn't have email, and they were much more appreciative of the thank you calls rather than the calls asking for a credit card number. So that was kind of my experience, and I would like to open up the floor to see what everybody else did.
I'll break the silence. Dawn Salerno, I'm at a historic house museum in New Bedford called the Rochestone Stuff House. I'm the executive director, but it's a staff of basically 5. So I can tell you, I can speak for membership. I'm not saying this is any model to follow, but just for some facts out there, we did not see membership go up or down during COVID. We responded to some specific COVID reactions where we did. Anyone renewing in the first 3 months that we were closed got basically a 15-month membership, which I've heard people are doing. So we followed, you know, that was an idea floating out there that we just decided to do ourselves. It does mean that we will now be without income for those 3 months from membership. So, you know, pros and cons there. I don't know that anyone noticed that their membership was 15 months or not. That jury's out. So membership numbers are steady. We have not changed any member benefits because mainly I think a lot of our members give to support the museum. It's a historic house, and classic historic house, we don't get a lot of members visiting us. They don't join for free admission. They don't really join for program, you know, discounts. So we did not change our value proposition. However, there was a lot more communication on our side through more social media, e-blasts, not specifically to members, honestly, just about the museum. And so I would say that was more of the change. We did not, honestly, we did not focus on our membership so differently when the pandemic hit, but we are now just starting to kind of make some changes that I think we would have made even without a pandemic. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for that.
Heather, similar here. Denise LeBlanc, I'm the executive director at Fuller Craft Museum, and much like yourself and Dawn, we really didn't have much communication about membership while we were closed, but we did offer an additional 5 months to their yearly membership for those months that we were closed. And actually, we've just started to see an uptick in membership recently. So now that we're open and back into communicating with our members, it is going up again. So similar to what you all are doing.
Yeah, this is Ted Trainer, the Brickstore Museum in Kennebunk, a small museum too. We had the same experience, not much of a change in members, but we hugely stepped up our electronic communication and programming in all kinds of ways. And then we stepped up calls to our members and donors, telephone calls from the trustees, and so we've become actually more active and more involved in the music than we had been before the COVID, and the feedback we're getting from our phone calls with the members that this COVID has sort of been a good thing for the museum.
Hi there, this is Allie Kane, use she, her pronouns. I am the grants manager at Tower Hill Botanic Garden. We actually did not extend out membership. We had a few people reach out and ask if we were doing that, because there were lots of other museums or just simply subscription services that were doing something like that. And we used it actually as an opportunity to let our members know that we really rely on their support, and that it's an integral part of our mission, and that we then said, if you are interested, we would certainly extend out your membership. We were getting most of those calls in April, so we said we'd extend it a month. And very few people of those individuals who reached out to ask, very few actually took us up on the offer. It seems that a lot of our members were really committed to supporting our mission and understood why we weren't doing a blanket extension across the board. We definitely have experienced a significant loss of membership. We're really fortunate being, a largely outdoor museum that we were able to open quite early. But we usually have around, I think we've lost about 1,100 members of a pool of about 8,300. So that, it's about a 12% decrease. So I know that percentage number, seeing as there's museums of all different sizes, is that proportion is more meaningful. But I will say we've seen a lot of, we continued to do paper renewal notices once we were able to get back into the office in July. We have a lot of people who are using renewal notices like this week that we were sending out in July. So I think that people are really kind of feeling out how their finances are doing and saying, this is something we want to do, but maybe we're not going to make the decision right now. One other small tidbit that I will share is we had a outdoor light show during the month of October that was highly successful, and we used it as an opportunity to reach out to anybody who had dropped within the past 9 months, and we sent them a postcard in September just saying, hey, you don't have a current membership, but we have this great event coming up and we miss you. And that actually saw an outstanding response in terms of people deciding to rejoin or simply to just take a class. We had a few people who, when I was looking at the numbers, they may not have renewed their membership, but they had purchased a couple classes recently. So I think that even though we're losing people, those, focusing on those 12% that we've lost is something that we're going to continue to pay attention to over the next year, because I think it's people who will want to come back when they're able to.
I just want to remind people to look at the Hoova app. I am making comments in the chat section there. And one of them was that, I don't the exact numbers, but we lost about 16% by June last year, but we've gained them all back for our membership. And for our members, most of our perks are, our publications, which are really greatly renowned, our Newport History Journal, and being a part of the society is one of our perks. And we actually let everybody into our museum for free. So even though our museum was closed, they still felt value. And like many of you, we did up our email communications. We used to be monthly, and we're still doing weekly emails for not only our members, but all of our regular constituents.
Hey there, Jake Elmore with Longyear Museum. We did a similar thing with, like you guys mentioned, is just email communication has been a little more just increased, and we usually do our membership renewals by mail, and we started doing the first kind of renewal notice by email, and that's just cut down on just our in-house kind of have to work to get the renewal notices out, but it's also increased the amount of renewals that we get. And one thing that we did on top of that is, it's a simple little thing, we just made our automatic renewal our main option on our website for membership instead of just like the normal one. So we've had a huge uptick percentage-wise in terms of people who've signed up for automatic renewal instead of just signed up for a one-year membership. So we've noticed that over the last few years, kind of building on automatic renewals, it's much easier to keep donor retentions because they might forget about you after a couple months or a year. So this way, it kind of keeps them and a renewed member. So that's been a huge increase for us, is just making sure we kind of emphasize more of the hey, click here, become an automatic renewal, like it's much easier for you and things like that. And then I've also tried to do monthly donors and kind of focus on that segment of just trying to emphasize like a few dollars can go a long way. Like here's some of the benefits that your money has gone towards. I think we've had a huge success when we emphasize this is how your contributions are helping. So even though our memberships might have kind of fluctuated a little bit over the last few months, it's starting to see an uptick because of people are seeing the benefits that's still going on, because restoration work can still be happening during this time. So they can see that we can still contribute to projects in different ways by just being a supporter of the museum. So that's been a huge thing for us.
Hi, this is Gail. I'm in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and I'm actually an independent consultant, but on the side, I am the membership coordinator for our local historical society. It's an all-volunteer organization, tiny little group, not a large membership, but we did a couple of things differently this year. We didn't open our buildings, and we have a historic house, barn, blacksmith shop, that sort of thing. We weren't able to open the buildings, but we have grounds, so we did more outdoor programming than usual. And instead of offering a member discount, we just said, okay, members, as a thank you for your support, you get free tickets depending on the level of the membership, sent out an email to that effect on Facebook, and people were very appreciative. We got some lapsed members who were new, and a couple upgraded their membership so they could get more free tickets, and that went over really well. We have had a pretty good membership retention. And the other thing, I was just really nervy when I sent out my membership renewal letters. I thanked people for their support, asked them to renew, and said, we know this is a hard time for everybody, but our expenses aren't going away. Would you consider an extra donation? And gave several options for what they could donate for specifically. And I was surprised at the response that we got for people who were willing to give extra to support us during difficult times. So, I mean, I don't know how that would work on a large scale, but for a small organization, I was surprisingly pleased with how all that went.
Gail,
Is,
can I ask a question about your level of membership? Did you give free admission to people who gave at what level did you go to?
We basically did, if you were an individual member, you got one ticket. If it was a family, you got, I think it was 2 adult and 2 child tickets. And then we really don't have too many members. You know, the corporate members were just, it was mostly individual and family. And it was, if you're an individual, you get one. And if you're family, you get enough for yourself, your partner, and a couple of kids, or some combination thereof.
Okay, thank you.
This is Audrey Thomson from Museum LA in Lewiston, Maine. We don't have a membership program at all, but what we did do during that time was send out an additional newsletter by mail that had a solicitation in it, and we actually received twice as many unrestricted gifts as we ever had before from a direct mail solicitation. And then on top of that, I was able to, so that helped a great deal. And then on top of that, I was able to secure a grant from a local foundation that helped me fund some new online resources for teachers and parents, and of course their students. And we just noted in the last couple weeks that the visits to our website to use those resources, we've had twice as many hits as we've ever had before. So these are they're online exhibits that in 3 different subject areas that include all sorts of information, along with oral histories and video chats with the curator and lesson plans at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. So we're really just trying to keep the community engaged. At this point, all of that is at no cost to them.
are you thinking about making a membership for people to be able to access part of that?
We're in the middle of a capital campaign to build a new museum, and we're thinking that it makes sense to sort of wait until we're at that point and start fresh. So at this point, no membership program at all. What we did find out, we did open again in July with a new exhibit in our main gallery. But the fact is hardly anybody was coming. People are still, especially up here, apprehensive to get out. And we were open 3 days a week, and now we've cut it down to 1 day a week, except by appointment only. So what we're learning is that they really don't want to be in our physical space right now. We also had some interns from a local college who were art majors who had access to very good virtual camera equipment come in and do some virtual tours for us as internship projects. So we've been able to post those as well.
There is a question in the app. How do you engage an audience when A, they don't know you offer such services as virtual lectures or a website, B, most are older and not well versed in computers, and C, you have a tiny staff?
Or D, all of the above. We send out a weekly MailChimp newsletter to tell people what the latest and greatest is. And for those who have access and who are interested, then they're willing to get online that way. We've also worked through ROHA Philanthropy, who does senior programs. And that's helped get some of the older members of our community engaged.
This is Allie again from Tower Hill. This is definitely something that we were concerned with as well. We have a really vibrant Facebook following, but it's not a following that is necessarily made up of our members. But I think that one thing that certainly changed is people have very quickly adapted to the digital landscape, simply just of the fact that, you know, even me being a millennial didn't know how to use a QR code before all of this. And then I had some great hosts and hostesses at some restaurants that taught me how to use one. So I think people are becoming more comfortable with it. I think it's also about using multiple channels. So knowing that we have a great Facebook following, we used that, but then we're also sending out a traditional email, as Audrey mentioned. We use Constant Contact. So I think that, you know, you're getting the people who are using social media and getting the people who are using Facebook as well. Also having clear instructions. So we have a lot of at-home activities, and we make sure that it's really easy to click on, but that it's that it says something, you know, right click and hit download, then this is something you're going to want to print. But I think people are beginning to pivot, and it's really about continuing to communicate with everybody, especially when, you know, museums are really their physical experiences. So not everybody was thinking about the digital. But I think those people who are looking for something to do, they're seeking it out. I did a sort of an analysis of a couple gardens to see what they were doing. And a lot of people saw increased engagement on social media and have done things like story times. It seems like story times are very popular. And, there's a lot of, like has been mentioned, virtual tours or DIYs and things like that. But I think really focusing on the kids is important, because there are a lot of families who are now turned into homeschoolers, even if let's say that the constituent of your museum was actually, you know, a grandparent or an older neighbor who don't necessarily have kids of their own, they've maybe turned into a pseudo daycare or homeschool, and so they might be looking for something like a Facebook Live story time. And it's actually a really great way, because you are getting people who may not have come for a story time on an afternoon, but they're going to zoom in and you get a little bit of a connection with people. We actually had one little girl who said, said after a story time, "Oh, Miss Marissa, I can't wait to meet you in real person in the spring." So I think that it's one of those things, you create your little celebrities, and while it might take a bit of time to do a weekly story time, you know, there could be a staff member or volunteer who's at home looking for something to do and is more than willing to do a 30-minute story time once a week or every other week. It's a really low-key way to keep people engaged.
Hi, this is Gail again, Londonderry Historical. I agree with Allie. We did do more outreach with Facebook and other social media for the reason of attracting families and younger people, and that definitely is the way to go. But as the question said, a lot of our members are older. They are reluctant or shy or whatever about social media. And again, because we're small, we can do this. But when they renew their membership, they have the option of receiving a newsletter electronically or by mail. So we will send it out to that handful of people who just don't want to get it electronically for whatever reason. And for some of our programming, again, because we're small, I called a couple of the people who I knew wouldn't see it otherwise and said, "We're having a concert next weekend. Would you like to come?" Told them all about it. Well, yes, they would come. And we are also lucky enough to have a couple of small local newspapers, and they just love happy news. So they are very happy to publish listings of our events. And that is really the way to get to our older audience. They read the local newspaper. So a few thoughts about getting to those folks who are tech fearful.
I've definitely felt like PR and press has not slowed down in the slightest. They still want all the news that they can get from us and ask questions whenever I send out a press release. So I feel like that's kind of the most normal thing that's been happening this entire year is press releases. We've just been sending out more than we usually do, just to let people know what's going on. A follow-up to that question that was asked in the Q&A on the Whova app was, how practical would it be to have a traveling exhibit in a large truck or van? Does anybody think that would be practical? Somebody already answered it and said, with our budget, question mark, not practical at all, but it's a good idea. And there's also another question. If museums with staff larger than 10, how often do membership teams meet with the program teams to coordinate efforts?
Hi there, this is Heather from the Martha's Vineyard Museum, and I asked that question. I'm hearing people say, oh, we decided to do this, you know, for our members. And in our organization, where we have about 15 staff members, our development team, which incorporates membership, isn't necessarily meeting all the time with the program team, you know, the education, the exhibits, and the public programming people. So I'm just curious how other people in museums that are a little bit larger, I get it when there's only a few people, you're all in the same space, but in the staffs that are a little bit larger, how are you coordinating those efforts?
I can try to respond. Hang on. Sorry. I have to leave for in a minute for another meeting, but just to that specific question, we have about 12 regular staff, and normally before the pandemic, we used to have monthly programming meetings with representatives from all the different departments. But when everything shut down, we started meeting weekly because we realized we had to quickly adapt things to doing things virtually. And it was very intensive, and there was a lot of interdepartmental collaboration. And then when we reopened in July, we scaled it back to every 2 weeks. And the meetings were kind of all over the place. So we decided to structure it that one meeting would be a brainstorming meeting, and then the next one would be logistics, and then the next one would be brainstorming, because we're still doing a lot of brainstorming about how we're going to go forward with our virtual programming. And there's a lot of ideas. So just that's how we've done it. And it seems to be working for us. And sorry, I have to leave early. So it was nice to see everyone.
This is Allie again from Tower Hill. I gave major props to Fitchburg Art Museum for being able to coordinate like that. Admittedly, we began, I think, a little bit siloed because education was scrambling to say, how are we going to teach people things and keep our programs going? And development says, you know, how are we going to, you know, how are we going to pay everybody? And so I think that admittedly, we were a little bit siloed in the beginning. And I think that after that initial shock sort of came out, we're really trying to think about throughout the entire organization how we can be more collaborative. So we do a monthly check-in with our education staff to figure out what events are going on that membership could piggyback, that will need sponsorship, that high-level donors would need to be involved in. Being the grants manager, I had a more intimate relationship with a lot of the education staff as a matter of necessity, and that's really opened the door for my other development colleagues. So I think it's really about building a culture of membership and philanthropy being throughout your entire organization. And that's something that, especially if you're a smaller shop, might actually be easier because the person is sitting right across the office from you. But I think in larger organizations, we become really focused on our major primary goal. So I think that starting off with something like a monthly meeting, I love the Fitchburg Art Museum's idea of a brainstorm meeting followed by a logistics meeting. I think that's a really good balance of having that creative collaboration and having sort of those extroverted and creative people really be able to take center stage, and then followed up with a logistics meeting to really make sure that those initiatives are carried out is something immediately I just was IMing my colleague, I think that that's something we need to adopt. So, but yeah, I think it's really about building we're all in this together sort of culture.
Piggybacking off of that, kind of all over the entire institution kind of togetherness. One big thing for us was really theming everything that we did towards gratitude. Gratitude towards our members, gratitude towards our donors, gratitude towards anybody interacting with us online, on Facebook, all of our social media outlets. Did anybody else feel like during the height that they kind of came to this conclusion of gratitude, or maybe some other word that you all felt like you were theming everything towards?
I can
Can you
speak for you. Oh, sorry, Ann.
I just want to hear more about it. It sounds fabulous. I wish I'd thought of it. I just remember in the beginning, wanting to reach out to so many of the elders in our community, feeling that they were just going to be so locked in, and and then it just became overwhelming. I mean, you can't call all of these people, and now I feel like I'm so overwhelmed with everything else we're doing that I've sort of dropped the ball, but we've moved on and people can get out now, or could get out. But can you tell us more about what you did with the gratitude concept?
Sure. It was just kind of an underlying concept in everything that we did. So in almost all of our social media, we'd say, thank you to our members and here's why, or, we're so thankful for this news outlet for covering us. Here's the article. Just thanking everybody every time we had any kind of interaction. Anytime someone shared, this has been a big thing and something we haven't been doing on social media. Anytime someone shared, all we did was just go in and just comment, thank you for sharing. And we've seen a big kind of, more people are getting engaged that way, of just us commenting on their post and saying, thank you for doing that. We also, sneak peek, but we're doing our newsletter right now, and our theme for our newsletter is gratitude. And there's actually a symbol that we're using, and it looks, if I can get it up there, it looks like this. And in every part of the newsletter that has to do with gratitude has that little symbol on it. And we just have language throughout the newsletter that's thanking everybody for their support and telling them the ways that their support is helping us. I mean, it feels like a big appeal letter. Is basically every time you're doing everything, you just go, how would I do this in an appeal letter? And then you change your language to be that way, to say, because of you, this is happening, instead of like, hey, we're great, saying because of you, we did this. So it's just a different way of molding your language to be more thankful and have more gratitude. There are a few more questions in the Whova app. Does anyone have a virtual membership category, meaning all benefits would be virtually accessed? I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads. Does anybody have?
I'd say that's a slippery slope for places that are summer communities, like where I live. We have a huge summer population, and sometimes they're at their homes for 2 weeks. So we would not want to give them that option if it means like a reduced rate. I don't know if that's what the question was.
I asked the question, so just to clarify, it was not rate specific. It's just the idea that if we had to close again, and we're currently open, but if we did have to close again, we were thinking, well, what could we offer? And maybe some limited membership benefits would be to just access virtual. And actually, we were thinking it might appeal to younger membership. It was just a brainstorm, and so that none of you have done it is maybe So, you know, a
I think,
sign of the success rate.
Dawn, I think it's a really great idea, and it's something that we were really throwing around this year. Not necessarily having a virtual only membership, but having exclusive membership content. So that perhaps there are certain exhibits in the library or a virtual tour that you could only access if you were a member, because what we were finding is we were putting all this great content, but anybody could access it. And I think that that's where it really comes, you have to have a real philosophical kind of debate within your organization of, are we here for the public good and the public education and having all of this be accessible to everybody? And how much do we want to balance the idea that because you're a member, you get certain aspects that others don't? So I think that there is a delicate balance. It's also really difficult to manage. That's the biggest thing that I think right now is preventing us from having any sort of members own membership exclusive content, is you'd have to create a portal with a login password, and who's going to manage that? Does it sit in education? Does it sit in development? But I think that there are, you know, I think there's a lot of precedent out there within the homeschool community, or even if you think about, you know, like apps that you get with your like cable subscription. I know it's a little bit different, but I think sometimes you have to step outside the museum field and think, oh, well, okay, you know, because I get this, I get, you know, HBO Go, or I get ESPN or something like that. And I think that you know, I'm not a cable subscriber, so I can't get my ESPN app, but I could subscribe for my ESPN only, and it's actually a little bit of an upcharge. So I think if you had the infrastructure and the technology to be able to do it, I agree with Lisa, you don't want to take away the value of your in-person membership. But if there's a virtual only, and let's say it's still half of the cost of membership, it's not insignificant. It's you're allowing those people who maybe they're only visiting your museum 2 weeks out of the year, but for those other 50 weeks of the year, they can access some cool exhibit content, some exclusive lectures, those sorts of things. I think there's a balance, but I think it's actually a really, really big pull in order to figure out how you're going to do that from the infrastructure side.
So I'm from Historic Beverly, and I would love to have that set up where I could have a members only portal. That will happen someday, probably long after I'm gone. But what we're doing now is we're doing the same thing we did when the programs were in person. They're free for members and they're $10 for non-members, and you sign up, you either pay or you register and you get a Zoom link, and that's how you access it. Now, yes, people could pass around the Zoom link, but nobody's done that. So it's worked out great. And it means that, you know, we did offer everything free for the first 2 months, and then we decided that was really undervaluing what we were doing. So we've essentially gone back to what we do, and you pay the same for a lecture that you would if you had come to the Cabot House to see it.
Has
So
anybody?
we've kind of done some similar things. I'm sorry, Heather. We've done some
go ahead.
similar things with that Allie was doing, and we had a member vault, and it was kind of nice at first. There were some nice kind of benefits to being a member because a lot of our membership is spread out across the state. They're all not here in New England. So since we had that, we decided how can we reach the people who are not locals? And it made sense at the time, but then a couple of years ago, we kind of changed our website, and we decided just to offer everything on the website for non-members and members. And that just made it easier in-house. There's a lot of complications of trying to figure out when should we put it here, when should we move it here, and just kind of a lot more conversations that are just now a little more fluid and easier because it's like, all right, let's just share it to the website. So that was kind of a nice thing that we did. And then we've also, you know, kind of with the gratitude aspect that was going on, is just kind of thank people for every little thing they've done. So we've done like videos of gratitude, just kind of showing videos of how our kind of our membership can see our houses, see our facilities without being in person. So different interactive videos or interactive exhibits on our website that can allow them to see some of our historic houses has really helped to draw attention to that. So it kind of keeps drawing attention to our sites. And we're seeing the views have increased, you know, significantly percentage-wise for our sake in terms of the last few months with this whole virtual focus, because everyone's not in the New England area. And if those that are kind of staying indoors and limited, that having access to our houses virtually has been a huge appeal to them. So we're trying to keep going that route of finding ways like that to use it.
I was just about to bring up if anybody has moved into, instead of doing more static things on their social media, on their emails, if they've moved to doing more videos. We've definitely moved into doing a lot more interviews and videos, and we've been putting them on our YouTube and then into our emails and through our social media channels. We've gotten some good reactions from that, and I was wondering if that was something everybody else has been doing.
One thing that we just kind of also did similar to that, again, sorry to keep talking about Jake with Long Year. We did like Long Year from home. So it's kind of like fun little cute interactive videos that showed some of our staff members and kind of all the different places they were working at and kind of, but still helping to fulfill their position, fulfill the mission of Long Year. So we had some really fun videos kind of put together from our, facilities or restoration kind of specialist teams that were showing some of the work that they were able to do with a converted workshop they made at their house or kind of things like that. So that was really fun because it was like a nice, easy kind of low-key video, but it shared an insight to how, during this closure, we're still making this, we're still doing things. So our little kind of Long Year at Home web series has been pretty successful, and we've done quite a variety in terms of our collections team, research team, and our facilities team. So they've all had different areas of focusing on, but that's been some popular videos we've done.
Ted, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think this virtual or video programming has been really helpful for us at the Brick Store. Special video tours of the collections in the back, in the storage, and many additional things on YouTube, a virtual road race to celebrate the town's bicentennial, and virtual events like having a dinner that everybody might. We provide a dinner at, say, Kennebunk in the 18th century, and we come up with a menu that it was 18th century, and get someone to make it. Then anybody who wants to participate would get out and pick up their meal independently, but then have a lecture going on while everybody's theoretically eating their meal at home. That kind of hybrid kind of events, and that this was a lot more than the museum have been doing in the past, and it's been hugely popular, to say the least.
I'll jump in with something new that we've been doing. I'm Sarah from the Norwich Historical Society, and Ted, my first job was at the Brick Store Museum. We've been doing podcast driving tours, which was a way to get everybody out while they were stuck at home, but safely. And those proved to be incredibly popular. And in fact, we have a pretty small town, and we've had over 4,000 downloads of the podcast in about 8 weeks. And with all the elementary kids who are stuck at home being required to go on them. And that has raised our membership dramatically as young families have started to get more involved.
Hi, so I'm Michelle Abrams. I'm from the First Corps of Cadets Museum in Boston. One of the things that we have done here at the museum, since a lot of our board of directors and volunteers are active duty military, is I've started doing a web series called First Corps of Cadets Online, which instead of going on a full virtual tour of the museum, breaks it down into smaller topics. So for example, we would do a World War I and talk about the First Corps in World War I, or talk about the old armory in Boston. So I think for us, and what's gotten such a good reception is that we schedule it around the lunch hour. So if people are at work or if they're with their kids, it's around noontime, they can sit, have lunch with us, or with me actually, because, I do it. But also, if they have questions for soldiers and other individuals that we work with, we're able to give them to them at that point and then have them answer it. Obviously we have to type it, and I'll answer it, what they've written, but I think having that kind of casual lunchtime interaction has been very successful for us and makes something that can sometimes seem a bit scary a little less scary.
I wanted to, on the Whova app, I wanted to ask this last question before we end. This is a bit of a topic change, but we don't charge admission for a number of reasons so that key member benefit isn't available to us. We offer member discounts for programs, shop purchases, etc., and are starting to do members-only activities. But I'm curious if people have other ideas for member benefits. I'll tell you one of our biggest member benefits is our publications. It's our newsletter that comes out twice a year, and our Newport History Journal, which also comes out twice a year. The Newport History Journal has been coming out since the 1800s. It's scholarly reviewed and it's by scholars, so it's a very popular benefit of our members, and it's one of the reasons that we have so many members here. Does anybody else have any other member benefit ideas?
So I guess I can speak to this a little bit. We also, so the way our museum is set up is we have the Veteran Association that runs the museum. So they have a membership program that's been around since, oh God, like 1870 something. So I'm not going to speak on that, but in terms of the museum, we don't have a membership program. But what we do offer is incentives to the members of the Veteran Association. So if they're a member, you know, they'll have access to, like in January, we're going to have an author talk. They'll get kind of first access to that before we release it to the public. So for, I don't know if many of you are familiar with Patreon. A lot of younger my generation, millennials and Gen Z use Patreon kind of as like an extra benefit. Type thing. So it's a similar structure there where, you know, they are paying to be in the Veteran Association. So, you know, obviously they'll get kind of first dibs on extra programming. And hopefully we'll be able to adjust that a bit more coming up for 2021, but that's kind of how we have it right now. But then we offer, for example, if we did a lecture in January, we'd let the members first, and then we would release it to the general public. So that's kind of how we do it.
I mean, we haven't talked much about membership discounts. You know, a lot of places give their membership discount as entrance to the museum, whereas we don't have that. We do our membership discounts at the shop, so people get a discount there, but they also get a discount to our 1 hour walking tour. So if you're a member, you get like a 30% discount, which is a pretty big discount for a walking tour price. So that's kind of a big thing that we do is, you know, once you're a member and you pay your fee, you get discounts. And it's not only on one ticket, it's you can buy like 30 tickets for walking tours and you get the same discount on all the tickets. So it's a pretty good discount there. We have about 10 minutes left before we do have to sign out, and we do always have to end right on time for these Zoom events because somebody else will be using it afterwards. Does anybody have any questions they want to bring to the group for discussion for the last topic?
I have a question, and that is, we have a large social media following, but trying to translate that into membership has been really tricky. And I just wondered if anybody had any ideas and success stories.
Well, hi, I'm with the Photographic Resource Center, and when we moved all our programs online, we had a little bonus benefit in that through Eventbrite, that allowed us to follow up with them and say, hey, you know, you're not a member now, maybe you want to be since you're enjoying our programs. So that ended up being a sort of a silver lining to going online, to be able to reach out to our non-members.
Sorry, Carol, you cut out when you talked before. You were talking about Eventbrite, so I didn't hear a critical part.
What I was just saying that because we have a list of people who registered for our online programs, we were able to follow up with the people who came to the program but aren't current members. And I say we have, moderate success with that. Maybe 2-3 people each program will come back and sign up. But I think just communicating and reminding them that we're a membership organization and that there are benefits to being a member, I think will pay benefits in the long run.
So I've actually had experience here and at my previous position at the Bostonian Society at the Old State House in Boston, Massachusetts. Giving Tuesday is actually, for me, has been one of the better things. In both places, I've never seen more than 6 gifts for each Giving Tuesday that we have had, but most of the time, those gifts turn into memberships afterwards. And we always do them as donations on Giving Tuesday, and then we send them kind of like a, hey, have you heard about our membership program? And usually they haven't. They just follow us on social media and saw that it was Giving Tuesday and said, hey, this year I'm going to give to you. So again, it's 2 or 3 people per year, but it does help to grow our social media following into a membership following. It's been one of the things I've done here for the last 2 years, and then at the Bostonian Society before that. But it's a small way to grow.
I know I've seen a lot of different museums as they prep for the holiday season doing gingerbread competitions, and one of the benefits they're doing is for membership. If you're a member, you get a discount on your submission, or maybe you're ranked in a membership category versus a non-members category. So that's something fun to think about.
I also once in a while on social media just do a post like, hey, do you know we do emails? You hear about everything first in our emails and then social media. So if you want to hear first, do it in the email or sign up for our emails. And then in the email, I was doing them once a month. In every email, we have kind of a membership appeal. Inside of it is just a little like, hey, are you interested in getting these discounts? Our Newport History Journal, become a member with a link. And we do get memberships that way. Just another idea.
I also know I'm creating the association, or the museum, it's a society, historical society in Connecticut, and they were doing a book club this past summer, and they were reaching folks from California, and those folks ended up actually joining the museum. So I know there is hope for that kind of integration.
All right, we have about 5 more minutes. Does anybody else want to bring up any last topics?
Okay, I'll introduce this. How about, is anything you've done now going to remain in place, or is anything happening now going to shift, how we're running membership programs, or, is anything that we're doing now going to be permanent, or does anyone see kind of, shifts on the horizon? And maybe we've already kind of addressed that with all this virtual, virtual integration, virtual programming.
I feel like everything's going to shift. And I just think that the virtual is, maybe we're going to have to do both. We're going to have to do them side by side and figure out how to integrate more virtual into what we're already doing. But it's just been so successful, and I know it's really going to take some time for reflection. I just feel like we've been going at such a rapid clip that we just got to slow down a little bit and really figure out how we are going to integrate this with what we used to do. But it's really been remarkable. It's been very, very successful.
Yeah, at the Martha's Vineyard Museum, our staff, once we reopened the building on August 4th, our staff said, okay, So can we go back to just doing exhibits and programs in person and not do the virtual stuff anymore? And I said, oh no, that genie is not going back in that bottle. People love it. And especially for those of us who are in seasonal communities, the connections that we're having right now with people who aren't here feels really important. Now, I don't know how we, monetize that and turn it into membership dollars and annual fund dollars yet, but and I think the other challenge for all of us, right, is that we're not adding to our staff right now. So we're doing more, and oftentimes we're doing more with less people. So it's a really challenging moment to figure it all out, for sure. Yeah.
Ted, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just say what Heather said. That is our experience. We think that this expansion, the types of virtual program we do is a permanent change. It'll be maybe modified when we get more active in-person visits again, but not much, because we've seen the growth of support for the museum from it. So it's obviously treating a market that is beyond the present situation.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Oops, sorry. Go for it. I was going to just say ours are very successful, but similar to Heather, since we're not hiring new people, once we open and have more of those public activities and tours, it's going to be hard to find a balance of both virtual and in person. That's something we're trying to figure out now, so we prep for that. Thanks, Heather.
Gail?
Yeah, just one last comment. When we were doing more, particularly outdoor programming on our site, we engaged with some partners that might not have partnered with in the past, and it was really rewarding for both sides. So I think we have made some new friendships and have some new partnerships that will definitely continue into the future. So that's definitely a plus and a silver lining.
Well, I wanted to thank everybody for coming here and joining this discussion and contributing to it. And I really enjoyed all of your answers to questions and the questions that were asked in the app. And I hope you all have a wonderful NEMA this year.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you. Bye.